Part of what happens during the Lenten season is that we walk through the steps, metaphorically, that Jesus walked through in the later part of his ministry before his death and resurrection. And at about this time in Lent, the readings that are assigned are often come from the time period before his arrival in Jerusalem. For example, we can read in the 9th chapter of the Gospel of Luke that as the time approached for Jesus to be taken up to heaven, he resolutely set out for Jerusalem. And he sent messengers on ahead who went into a Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people there did not welcome him because he was headed for Jerusalem. Clearly, from this description and the descriptions in the other Gospels, he was already focused on what he knew to be the end game. He already had his sights set on Jerusalem. He had his eyes on the cross. And he would not allow anything to distract him from his mission. The symbol of the old rugged cross is the focus of today's hymn, and it is the focus of who we are when we claim to be disciples of Christ. During the Lenten season, many parishes adopt the use of a prayer service that is called Stations of the Cross. Now, this prayer service is based on a pathway that's called the Via Dolorosa, which is the way of the cross, in Jerusalem itself. And on that pathway, pilgrims can walk the journey designated by plaques on places where the different events were believed to have occurred. In our churches here in New Jersey, we often have plaques on the walls, the outer walls of the church, that we in turn walk station to station and talk about and pray for each of the events that happened in those final hours of Jesus's life. By walking this trail, either metaphorically or literally, and hearing the prayers around that long walk to Calvary, we can emphasize and empathize with that final day in Jesus's life here on earth as we hear the different points of that journey. The story, as we are told in the second station, where Jesus bears the cross, Jesus went out bearing his own cross to the place called the place of a skull, which is called in Hebrew Golgotha. Although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered. Like a lamb, he was led to the slaughter, like a sheep that before its shearers is mute. So he opened not his mouth. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. So now let's listen to the words of the old hymn, The Old Rugged Cross, to help us contemplate that time. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. Oh, that old rugged cross, so despised by the world, has a wondrous attraction for me. For the dear Lamb of God left his glory above to bear it to dark Calvary. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. In the old rugged cross, stained with blood so divine, a wondrous beauty I see. For 'twas on that old cross Jesus suffered and died to pardon and sanctify me. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true. Its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he'll call me someday to my home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. So here's some questions to ponder. The first one may seem a little obvious, but it's an interesting one to ask anyway. Have you ever prayed the Stations of the Cross? My second question is, why would the journey of Jesus's cross-bearing help us to connect to him during this season? And finally, how are the images in this hymn effective in expressing the hardship that Jesus faced? And so as you think about those questions, as you move through the rest of your day, I would encourage you to take the time to feel what it may have been like in Jesus's heart during that time. And to remember that Jesus's heart was always focused on us. And so as you contemplate that for the rest of the day, please take care and may God bless.